Hi chess fans, hopefully you've come ready today to enjoy another game played in the Indianapolis Open. This is our round 2 game where I played Evan Koehl. And Evan was a rather young guy, but he played very well. And in fact, he got the better of me out of the opening, which I didn't expect, especially with my start. So I have the white pieces, and throughout my entire event, this one in Indy and also in the Michigan Open, I think I began every game as white with knight to f3. Now, I will say after playing online last night and thinking about what I've been doing for the last year during COVID, probably d4 might have been a better choice for me, because online I've been playing that a lot more. So I feel like by playing a little bit differently, I kind of put myself in a different situation that I've been used to online, right? So why not do what I've been doing all the time, kind of thing, right? But anyway, play knight to f3, knight to f6. And then d4, so just grab some space in the center. g6, they're going to fianchetto that bishop and have pressure on my pawn. And I say, yeah, I think fianchettoing is a good idea. Let's do that as well. And so, nice symmetrical position here. And of course, white in a symmetrical position enjoys a slight advantage. That'll always be the case. And the problem, of course, is that at the point that you stop having the symmetry, white would make a move, and then of course black at some point can no longer copy, and that's where they could possibly fall behind. So this is why we can't just beat computers by copying them, right? So anyway, a castle still perfectly symmetrical, and I played the c4 move, and Evan wisely supports the center with c6, and it's kind of like a Slav structure. We've got this bishop on g7, right? So nice game. Play the knight out, and here I could have considered maybe like a move like knight to e5, right? Just a kind of a standard move in a Catalan type structure with that bishop on g2 and such. But instead I play the queen out to b3, and I partly thought that my opponent would try like queen to c7. I'm not sure why I thought this, or queen to d7, but queen out to b6 was the choice, and a good one, I think. I could have considered a different move, but I played something I've seen played against me a lot online, and so I just played the c5 move, saying, okay, let's exchange queens. Maybe I have b4, b5, that kind of idea. And actually, after this knight came in, I could have considered maybe like bishop to f4, or like bishop e3. I could have considered just some different moves here, but I actually moved the knight away, and I had like this thought of like, what if I go to a4 and black does, I don't know, like e5 or something, right? Just goes for a break. I might have knight to b6 as like a surprise shot, where the rook is somehow like this pawn is pinned to the rook, right? So the pawn can't take the knight. So I said, I think I'll go over here and just have this little tactical shot of like knight to b6. And Evan played a really good game and just played knight d7 almost immediately. So really, a good eye of understanding the position, understanding some of the threats, because that's kind of a subtle threat. Not everybody's going to see the X-ray attack there and the knight coming in to maybe help me get an exchange, right? But Evan plays knight to d7, completes the development of the pieces there, and you see that black has now completed the opening sequence and has begun the middle game. Whereas I still have that bishop on c1 that has to find a square, right? So I play e3 to support my center, and e5. So I thought this move again was excellent, like really putting the pressure on me. Black enjoys a slight advantage here, and it's not clear like where I'm going to attack, or what weaknesses black might have that I can get to, right? So anyway, I played rook over there to d1, and then b6 came, and I was thinking, how do I want to handle this? So I played b4 just to help reinforce the pawn, and but I had that feeling of like, man, somehow black had more targets, more threats, and he's got these pawn breaks with e5 and b6, so he's really one like pushing action on me, right? So I'm just kind of responding to Evan's moves here. Really nice game. Pawn captures, I capture back. And then played this move. So it looks like maybe wanting to put more pressure on d4, and of course if the knight was to retreat to d2, breaking up the communication of the rook and the d4 pawn, then the bishop and this e5 pawn could win a pawn on d4, right? So I played pawn takes, and could have also played a lot of different ways, I guess, there, but I played pawn takes, and then I played knight up here, and I was beginning to think, okay, I think the best move here is probably going to be bishop back to d7, and I began having this idea of like, what about the X-ray here? So like the rook attacking that bishop on d7, and the idea of like f4 and my knight moving away. A lot of moves, right? But anyway, I'd have the idea maybe like bishop takes knight, and we'll see this in a second. So the bishop goes back to d7 to guard the pawn, and I play this knight move. Now this is just setting up, the x-ray, right? So rook threatens bishop, and bishop can take knight. But I would want to play f4 first, push this guy away, and then once he's moved away, then I could take the knight and then take the bishop, right? So just like a kind of a threat, right? But black actually had a really good move here that wasn't played in the game. Bishop to g4. So he could have played bishop to g4 and just pinned my knight to my rook and caused me some discomfort, right? That would have been pretty strong, actually. Not what was played in the game, though. We saw rook over here just kind of protecting the bishop against my threats, and that's probably the first point to talk about in this game. Whether you're playing a tournament game or any game of chess, there's this feeling sometimes of like who's attacking, and then one side maybe when they're being attacked responds by defending, right? So this is the choice of like, do I attack, do I defend? And actually Evan had a much stronger attacking move here, but makes this defensive move because maybe focused on my attack. And it's always hard in chess to balance like, when should I be responding to my opponent's threats versus when should I be like kind of making my own threats? Like whose threats are more important? But yeah, that bishop move out to g4 would have been pretty sweet. It's a nice way to maybe get some activity and maybe cause me some discomfort as I try to figure out how to hold the position against these minor pieces all over my king over there, right? So anyway, after the rook came over, I played f3. Which is fortunate. Notice if the bishop had come out to g4, I wouldn't have that move available because I just had my bishop controlling the f3 square. And black would have had both the knight on e5 and the bishop on g4, right? But anyway, I'm able to play this move. And the knight goes back. And then I'm looking at the position for a while, and I came up with a plan for just developing my pieces. It wasn't about attacking anything. It was just, the goal was the c1 bishop didn't have a square. And my thought was if I could just get the c1 bishop to c3, life would be a lot better. But I noticed that as I travel to c3, so if I go bishop d2, and then let's say black plays like knight to c4. Well, the knight's going to attack my bishop on d2, attack my pawn on e3, and attack my pawn on b2. And I didn't like that, so I thought, you know what, why don't I play my king to f2 with the idea of the king holding the e3 pawn, allowing my bishop to go to c3, was kind of my thought. So I played my king up, and I think in this position, Evan looked at the board and said, oh, we're entering maybe more of an endgame. My opponent's putting the king closer to the center. I should also play my king closer to the center. And this is kind of like a psychological thing in chess, right? So as your opponent maybe has one idea, it might communicate to you that the same idea or a similar one would be good for you as well. So I played this king move. We see black play a king move. But that's as far as my king wanted to go. I just wanted to get my king guarding that pawn, like I said, for the purpose of this bishop maneuver. And but maybe king f8, I'm not sure that was necessary for black. I'm not sure that it helped helped achieve too much here. And I think that there might have been stronger moves, like maybe just immediately knight to c4 or something, and or some other move. I guess I just don't think that was needed, right? So anyways, I play the bishop to d2, and then this game is actually almost over. But I will say this: so my opponent's next move is extremely natural. And it's one of those things where when you're attacking in chess, and I'm guilty of this too, we'll see it later on in the tournament for myself as well, where I make a mistake that's similar. When you're attacking and you force it, maybe you force a piece or you attack something, and then your opponent responds to your attack, we oftentimes kind of like put our guard down. It's like, okay, so I moved there, and in response to my move, you moved here. So the knight goes to c4, and my bishop goes to c3. So pretty natural stuff, right? Knight threatens bishop, bishop goes up supporting the pawn, completes the idea I had of getting the the bishop into c3. The knight's got a nice, what seems to be a nice square on c4. But if you take a minute and maybe look at the position from black's side, right? So let's flip the board for you guys. Look at it from black's side. What do you notice about how something changed when the knight went to c4 and my bishop went to c3? So that interaction that just happened, what's going on right now in the position? And if you just take a minute and look for it, I think you'll see it. But I will say that it's easy as the player that made that knight move to not even look for the problem that exists right now. And the reason is, again, because you forced action. You played the knight in, you attacked a bishop, and because you attacked a piece that then moved, it's easy to then kind of release yourself from the thought of what attack or ideas might my opponent have, because you feel like somehow by forcing the action, how could they have changed things in a way that would be bad for me, right? So I think that's why this next move happens, and it's an unfortunate one. I think it relates to my king move a minute ago, and that same idea of centralizing the king maybe being strong. And so my opponent actually here played king to e7, and as many of you have maybe realized already, that's not going to work, right? So if we just kind of flip the board back around again, that king to e7 move allows me to have a pretty powerful move right now. And why don't you go ahead and just like pause the video and look for this move? Like what was the move that white played now that caused black a great amount of discomfort? Take that time, look at it for a while. Don't actually, if you can just stop the video and not actually try it until you see it. I think this is one, you know, at almost any level, I think you guys could find this. You know, it's one of those like, once you see it, you can't not see it anymore, but it does take a minute to think about it, and it does relate to the knight and the bishop that I just talked about. So take that moment, and we'll see you guys in a second. Okay, so I gave a little bit of silence there. Assuming you took that time, you paused the video, you found the move, and you looked around and you said, you know what? This pawn thrust seems to cause black great difficulty, and absolutely it does. And the problem is all of these squares that the knight would like to use, and then of course there's this one that the king had control of, and there's this one that we have a rook and a bishop on, and there's this one with the bishop and the knight both on it, and then of course this last square, of course the pawn's got that one. So all these squares, all these 8 squares that this knight would normally have available, and because the knight's on a more centrally located square where there are 8 possible squares to go to, it does make you have that maybe less blunder checking thought that like, well, my knight's got so many possible squares to go to, it couldn't possibly be trapped. But it is in fact the case that after b3, this knight finds itself with no available square. And it's really unfortunate because Evan played a fantastic game here. Evan was, you know, actually ahead, you know, engine-wise, he was ahead. He was doing better. He had a better position. My position was worse prior to this move. If he would have played rook to e8 instead of king to e7, he would actually stand better. And so I felt bad for him in a way, and I followed the rest of his event as well, and he played such good games. Such good games. He found really good moves. Maybe in the 3rd or 4th round I saw him playing a young lady, and he had a really nice position against her, and I think he may have gone on and lost that game, but he played such beautiful moves and such nice attacking moves, and such... it's just nice to see young players finding their way through the game so well, and I saw a lot of that in both of my events, so a lot of respect to him, and I think a bit unfortunate the way this happened. Like I said, the fact that he attacked my piece, through attacking my piece lost the ability to have a retreat square for the knight. It's one of those things where you just kind of feel for him. Like I didn't play tournaments when I was younger. I didn't even know they existed. I started playing when I was 4 years old. My first tournament was at the age of 17 after playing chess my whole life and reading books on it and having no idea that US had a presence in tournament chess, I guess. So, but I gotta say, I would be very, I would have been upset if I was young again and I'd done this, right? Because his talent level is just so high, and I can't say enough about that. So, anyway, yeah. So I play b3. We get one additional move from black. I capture the knight, and then the real problem here isn't just the fact that it's a knight for a pawn. Like that can happen in a game, and you'll see a lot of tournament games where they play on, and he definitely could have played on here. But part of the frustration is that somehow all of my pieces, maybe b3 is a bit loose, I guess, but all of my other pieces seem to have nice coordination. Like, oops, I didn't mean to do that again. We've got like this knight guarding the pawn, knight guarding the bishop, other knight guards the bishop. So like, there isn't like a fun tactical shot. A lot of times when you win material in chess, there's somehow like this move that like maybe like a knight to g4 move, like knight to g4 check, and maybe the pawns get damaged a little bit with moving this guy, and then bishop takes bishop would be available, you know, but the bishop's protected. So it's just frustrating because he played a really good game, and you know, at the end here he just doesn't have too much. So that's actually as far as this game went. In this position he resigned, and like I said, it was just a bit unfortunate. So hopefully you guys have enjoyed round 2 of the Indianapolis Open for me. We'll be looking at round 3 soon. I know this video is a little bit shorter because the game was a little bit shorter. This isn't the shortest game that was played by me though. I actually lose later on in the Michigan Open. I lose in 15 moves to a 16-31. And it was overconfidence that really got me in that. I looked at the position, I said, give my opponent an attack, and I allow an attack that I shouldn't have allowed, and I suffered for it, you know. So anyway, feel bad for Evan here. He's a good kid and a very intelligent, very good chess player. Just an unfortunate game. Like I said, I think the oversight due to what I was describing there. So have a wonderful day. I look forward to seeing you guys on my stream soon. Hopefully you enjoyed looking at this game, and we'll see you guys soon. Have a good day, everybody. Bye for now.